Hi, I'm Jamie Roth, intuitive healer, and welcome to Intuitive Encounters Conversations. I'm curious, have you ever felt like people just don't get you? Like your heart is speaking one language, but the world hears something entirely different? This is what I call the misunderstood wound or being misunderstood. And it's something I've seen in a lot of people I work with, but honestly, it's something that I felt really deeply in my own life as well. It's that ache of being misread and misjudged and simply unseen for who you really are. I would even suggest it's actually one of my deepest wounds. So, in today's conversation, we're going to explore this wound, where it comes from, and how to know if you carry it, but also how it impacts your identity, your relationships, and the steps you can take to begin healing it. At the heart of it, the misunderstood wound forms when your authentic self isn't mirrored back to you clearly. So again, you just don't feel seen. And I have that deep ache pretty regularly. So maybe you grew up in a family where you were constantly mislabeled, like the sensitive one, the troublemaker, the too much kid. For me personally, I was constantly told I talked too much, I was too loud, I was dramatic. And it's not to say that I didn't talk a lot, I still do. But what is too much? I can absolutely talk too much for some people. We all have limits on stimuli. But one thing I've learned from life is that there's always somebody for everybody. So the people that I tend to draw into my life are usually listeners. Like my best friends are people who like to listen. I'm also a very good listener, but in relationships, like close ones, I tend to be the talker. So did I talk too much? Or was I just not with the right people who wanted to listen? On another note or example, I was often told I was too dramatic or I was dramatic. Well, then that was later used to gaslight me when I was older. When I made claims of being sexually abused by first a family friend and then a family member, that was a way for people, that label was a way for people to look away and step away from me and not accept my truth. So, was I dramatic or was I someone who tends to be deeply inspired and excited about life and wildly enthusiastic and fun? Was it dramatic or was it that some people couldn't hold space for my exuberance because they couldn't hold space for themselves with that? Like perhaps some of those people claiming that I was dramatic were people that had to learn how to make themselves small and quiet their own voice. So to have somebody who was like actively spoke out to be heard, which was me, was conflicting to their own narrative about what they were allowed to be or what they allowed themselves to be. Other examples might be that you were told your feelings weren't real or valid. This can happen in community, in different faiths. You can be misunderstood for your curiosity, your independence, your truth. So what happens is that over time, this creates a belief that if I share who I really am, people won't accept me. I'll be misjudged, I'll be rejected. And the truth of the matter is that probably actually has happened or can happen, as in the personal examples I've already shared. Um, Absolutely, it can come with rejection, and it can also come with abandonment. So naturally, we're going to start hiding parts of ourselves, right? Like we're going to over explain, we're going to shrink back, we're going to contort ourselves into what other people want to see. We're going to mask up. So the wound itself is not that you're being misunderstood. It's actually that you start believing that your real self is not safe to be seen. You're not safe to be your genuine, authentic self. That's really what the wound is. So let's talk about some signs that you might recognize in yourself, okay? You might feel like an outsider, even in groups where you technically belong. This one hits for me personally when I think about growing up with my family. I had a brother and some cousins that were the same age that we were close with and we would see often. And on one hand, I really have very fond memories of growing up with cousins. Like there's a fondness to it. Excuse me. Excuse me. However, there's also some black sheep type of feelings that come up when I think about times with my brother and my cousins and their feelings of being misunderstood, being an outsider. Like I can definitely recall feeling like I never truly fit in with them, even though there wasn't anything necessarily inherently different between the four of us, like we were just kind of your average regular kids. But I definitely have always had a lingering feeling of being an outsider to my family. And that actually only proved true when I was an adult and they did, in fact, push me all the way out. So there might be some truth that there is not necessarily safety to be yourself, right? So other signs, though, and things you might do if you have this misunderstood wound is you might catch yourself over explaining, repeating yourself, defending your decisions constantly, like desperately trying to get people to understand you, right? I've definitely done that in the past. Vulnerability can feel risky because of the fear people like won't get you, or worse, they'll twist your words, especially if that actually has happened before. Maybe you've had the experience of people projecting their own stories onto you instead of actually hearing your truth. This is actually something I've experienced recently. I had what I thought was a good friend, and we had a disagreement about how a situation was handled between the two of us. And it became really clear that that person had created an entire story in their head, including an expectation of a very specific type of feedback they expected from me. You know, like when people create a dialogue, I've done this, maybe you've done this, like in your head, the whole back and forth between yourself and the other person. Like, I'm going to say this, they're going to say this, I feel this way, so therefore the person needs to respond this way. Well, rarely does that go well because you can't force a person to respond the way you want to, obviously. And also, they have their own perception. So when I didn't give that manufactured, in their mind, response back to them, because it wasn't true and authentic to me, it wasn't true to how I felt in the situation, how I perceived the situation, they did, in fact, reject me. Another piece of this wound is the identity piece. So when you're misunderstood over and over again, you start asking, like, who am I really beneath all these roles and labels and projections and misunderstandings? And I don't necessarily think that's a negative thing to do. I do think it's important to like step back and question ourselves. However, I also want to pause here and normalize this. So if you see yourself like in anything I've talked about today so far, any of these signs, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've lived through experiences where your truth wasn't honored. But the important and positive part of this is that that is survivable and it's healable. So this wound doesn't just sit quietly, like it shapes how we connect with others. So in families, it can look like being the black sheep, the scapegoat, the one who's overly responsible. This can take on people-pleasing tendencies, because what people-pleasing really is it's the I'm going to like overcompensate. I'm going to take care of everyone's needs first so that hopefully I'll be safe from any type of like backlash or unkindness or harm. If I'm generous all the time, if I'm overcompensating, I will be safe from being unliked. Might still be misunderstood, but at least I'll still be accepted. In friendships, this might be always about giving more than you receive, or immediately pulling away because it feels safer than trying to explain yourself. Or maybe it means getting hurt a lot, like you don't feel understood when your authentic self is trying to shine and you've had a lot of hurtful outcomes in relationships. In romantic partnerships, this wound can make trust a lot harder because you might want to hide yourself, or like because you're just waiting around for rejection, right? And then let's not forget within yourself. This shows up as, or can show up as, like secondhand guessing everything you think, you feel. You might silence your truth, or just might wear masks just to make you like feel like you can fit in. So the compassionate truth about all of this, though, is that the problem isn't you. The wound exists because your authentic self wasn't reflected back to you in a clear, loving way. Your heart wasn't heard. Healing begins when you start seeing yourself accurately, though, even if others don't. Okay, let me repeat that. Healing begins when you start seeing yourself accurately, even if others don't. So again, this wound isn't like maybe some of these things have happened. They probably have. So the first step is awareness. Start noticing when the wound is being triggered. Maybe it's when you feel like the urge to over-explain, but instead of spiraling, you can say to yourself, oh, that's my misunderstood wound speaking. Like naming it can give you power because then you can begin to work with it. I would encourage some self-validation. So before you seek like the understanding from others, you give it to yourself first. Journal on it, speak it into a voice note, sit with your heart and affirm, I know my truth and that's enough. And that's going to take time. That affirmation will take time to like land and sink in. It's something you're going to have to work with often, along with like embodiment. Okay. So healing happens in the body. Remember, we always work with mind, body, spirit. So like movement, breath work, placing your hand on your chest, your womb space, while saying it's safe to be me. These kinds of things help you rewire your system. So mind, body, spirit, we have to work with, okay? So we got to work with the mind, rewiring it with affirmations, come up with little phrases. We have to work with the body and drop in. We got to move and release the energy of that wound, that pain. We have to allow ourselves to release. Maybe it's crying. And we have to bring all the systems together. So I would say that the fourth thing would probably be boundaries. So when you feel misunderstood, or like basically you need to accept that everyone will not understand you, and that's okay. Like you don't need to contort yourself for every single person. So this sounds like it's okay for people to misunderstand me. Or you can even be so bold as to claim, I'm okay with people being wrong about me, or I'm okay with you being wrong about me. You might say that to somebody who's being wrong about you, who's not hearing you, who's not understanding you, who's not willing to hear you or to feel you or to accept you in your truth. Because their truth is bigger for whatever reason. Typically it's a projection. So that one works really well for me. It's okay for you to be wrong about me, whether you say it to the person or you say it to yourself. Or again, it's okay for me to be misunderstood. And that's probably not going to be easy to actually feel in your body at first. You know, you might feel that in your gut where you're just like, ooh, that's not actually true. So again, you can bring in movement, you can bring in breath and just repeat it until you start to feel the truth of that. And again, this is not a one-time thing. This wound didn't come in quickly and it's not going to leave quickly, as any wounding does. It hurt to come in, it might hurt to exit, to release. So always be gentle and kind with yourself. I also want to mention aligned community. Healing accelerates when you're surrounded by people who do see you clearly. Spaces where your authenticity is celebrated and not questioned. Spaces where when there is discomfort or disagreement, instead of walking away, people come together to hear with compassionate curiosity. And you may still not end up on agreement on how something unfolded or what's your truth versus their truth, but you land on, but that's okay because we care for one another. So we'll try again. We'll try this, we'll move forward in this relationship. We'll forgive this moment and we'll try to do better next time. So let's do a quick practice together. And if it feels safe to you, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to place a hand on your heart and take a slow, deep breath. And as you exhale, I want you to whisper, I am worthy of being known in my truth. Okay? I am worthy of being known in my truth. Breathe that in and let it land, because you are worthy of being understood, especially to your own self. I am worthy of being understood. Now on the flip of that, keep breathing, keep working with it. And again, if you feel like your body wants to move, you need to shrug your shoulders, you need to tense up and then release, like allow yourself to do what your body's asking. That's the somatic piece. That's the embodiment piece. And breathe in. On the exhale, you can say, it is safe for me to be misunderstood. It is safe for me to be misunderstood. And here's what I want you to take away. Healing the misunderstood wound isn't about forcing everyone else to finally say, I get you. Because there are always going to be people that don't get you. Just as, be honest with yourself, there's people you don't understand or get. And that really is okay, right? That's okay for you to not understand people. The goal is for you to understand yourself and trust yourself. Trust your truth and your authenticity. It's not about making another person right or wrong. It's simply about, it's okay for me to be misunderstood. It's okay for someone to be wrong about me. Because I know me. I know my heart. I know my intentions. I'd love for you to reflect on this, perhaps even journal on it. A prompt I'll give you is, what part of you has felt most unseen, and how can you begin to honor it today? What part of you feels most unseen, and how can you honor it today? So spend some time in that reflection, maybe journal on it. If you feel led, you can share your reflection in the comment. I will receive and read everyone and comment back. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more conversations on healing, intuition, and empowerment. If you would like some help on your journey with your misunderstood wound, you can schedule a one-on-one session with me at www.intuitiveencounters.com. The link will be below. I do both in-person sessions here in West Lafayette, Indiana, as well as virtually, and you can choose the intuitive healing session. And remember, you don't need everyone to understand you. The most important person already can, and that is you. Blessed be.